Welcome to another episode of the Need for Speed Most Wanted Mod Showcase, and in today's episode we've got yet another themed episode, just because, well, if you've seen my list of cars currently on request, you could see that I can make many of them into such things. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one because they're all McLaren F1s, but all three of them have been requested by different people. And unfortunately, I can't remember the first one off the top of my head real quickly, and let's do a jump cut so I can quickly go find out. Okay, it was by Frank McCutcheon, or something like that. I hope I said that correctly. If I didn't, you can feel free to tell me in the comments of how I butchered your name, and I'm sorry. But yeah, he requested, of course, the standard road-going McLaren F1. Now, he did give me an NFS Cars request, and though I've, of course, seen and though I've of course seen better F1 looking F1 mods, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today. You know, this looks generally fine. There's nothing too bad about this one. It kind of looks like it would sort of fit in with the game's car list at the time. There's a couple oddities, like there's no like in between part in those two areas in the bumper, like the real car has, and the lights look a little too big here. They could have been brought down a little bit to make because they kind of look like they're kind of bulging out a bit too much. But apart from that, yeah, it's fairly accurate to a McLaren F1. So again, I've seen higher quality ones elsewhere, but this was the one that was requested to me, so I wish to acknowledge that. So you know, I will probably do exactly just that. Anyways, but this is also a bit of a fairly interesting and somewhat annoying case. All three of these McLaren F1s that I'm going to be showing off today all replace the same car, and that is the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren, which I suppose makes sense because replace a car that has McLaren in the name, which like a Mercedes-Benz that was just tuned by McLaren. It was like a co-project, and then replace it with a full-on McLaren. So, you know, it kind of does make sense to do that. But it is going to be a little bit irritating having to stop the game twice just to swap out a mod and then start it back up and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. I will say, the guy's tire imprints on the car look a little bit weird for the way it's designed. Anyways, regardless of that, since I've kind of been holding it off, well, I haven't really been holding it off, I just haven't mentioned it yet. So over here at the Petersburg track, we take the cars. If you're new to this, I take every car mod that I've given. I give them 3 flying laps, do as fast of a lap time as possible. The fastest time that they achieve goes onto a leaderboard. And since I've done so many mods, you can just, we've had cars go as fast as about a 38-second-ish run from a McLaren MP4-29 to as slow as over 2 minutes. Set by a bus. Yeah. As the case for this F1, well, it's certainly going to rank fairly damn high. This thing really moves. It is a tremendously fast car. Tons of grip. Very, very quick. Kind of what you would want out of an F1, really. I mean, of course, this is going far greater than the car would actually be going, but hey, it still can't really complain. When at least I wouldn't. And I mean, look at that time. That was a 49.66. That's tremendously fast. I'm pretty sure at least top 20 material. This is a really so far this is turning out to be a really damn good mod. I mean, you know, you can let those slight model inaccuracies off because this thing just fucking moves. I mean, yeah, it probably moves quicker than the F1 actually would, to be fair, but it still is really good. I mean, the F1, if they try to have a somewhat realistic one, I mean, it would still have a really high top end. I mean, the car does do about 241 miles an hour in real life. Probably look more like 243, to be honest. But actually, yeah, it does do about 243-ish. What am I saying? But you know, you can but I probably wouldn't expect it to handle this good or get to that speed that fast. But hey, again, I'm not complaining. Anyway, but yeah, though, it does make me feel happy though that we've got a really good mod right out the gate, because I've always been a fan of the McLaren F1. It is still, to this day, probably one of the single greatest cars ever made, because at the time it was released, it basically defied everyone's expectations. It set the bar so high to unimaginable heights in 1992 that no one had thought it was even possible at the time. It creamed its competition, and it was just beyond anything. It was so well crafted, so much attention to detail, so much care and love that Gordon Murray put into the car. He wanted it to essentially be the ultimate road car, and honestly, in a lot of ways, even as this many years later, it still kind of is. Especially when you consider the fact that it only took 627 horsepower from a BMW V12 to power this thing to 241 to 43 miles an hour. All the cars that have since beaten it, that have done faster on the top end, have required tons of more horsepower and use like turbocharged or supercharged engines. This is naturally aspirated. This, to me, the F1 just feels like it's a timeless vehicle. You can look at other cars that come along since like the Veyron and the Hennessy Venom GT and the Koenigsegg 1-1. All these cars that can go faster and have achieved like these amazing feats. But the F1 just kind of felt different. It had its own kind of character to it, and I really like it for that reason. And that's why it's one of my favorite cars ever. Anyways, enough of me ranting. Enough of me talking about why I like this car. Let's just move on to the next one. Okay, so we go from the standard road-going F1 to the F1 LM. Now, if you don't know exactly why this car existed, essentially the F1 LM was designed to celebrate the McLaren's tremendous success at the 1995 24 Hours of Le Mans, where the F1 GTR, basically, essentially what this LM is pretty much in a lot of ways fairly based off of, won overall at Le Mans, having a first place overall victory, and in its class went second, third, fourth, and seventh. In which I have to remember that, trying to remember this off the top of my head, I think it's something like third, fourth, fifth, and 13th. I can't remember exactly. Someone can probably be a little more accurate with it, to be honest. And if you do, great. But basically, because the car did so well, McLaren made 5 road-going F1 LMs, and they have a 6-1, which is the XP1 prototype that McLaren has held on to. Basically, these McLarens were basically meant to say, as a little bit of a way to try to give 5 very lucky people the chance of a lifetime to have an F1 that was more designed for what was seen on the Le Mans at Circuit de la Sarthe in 1995. And of course, the F1 LM is perhaps best remembered for its very somewhat memorable color of papaya orange. It had been said that by McLaren that all 5 of these F1 LMs were painted this, but there has been some reports saying that this might not entirely be true. Now, what would you expect of the F1 LM? Well, it was said that the car wouldn't, due to the increased aerodynamics, the car would not have been able to reach its 241 or 243 top speed ceiling with the regular road-going F1. But the LM did make up for it by being a more powerful car, whereas the F1 made about 627 horsepower. The LM was bumped up to about 680. So we got a bit of a boost. Same kind of engine, all that same kind of stuff. And again, although because of aerodynamics, the top speed was reduced down to still a very respectable for the time, 225 around that sort of mark. Now, of course, this mod definitely seems to be going faster now. I'm even hitting over 245. Now, I would be very interested to see what this car, in real life, its top speed was, but again, there's only like 5 of these, and I'm not sure if McLaren is willing to take their prototype out and try to find out for themselves. I mean, maybe, but I wouldn't be sure. Although that being said, this F1 LM is looking on pace to go faster than the regular F1. I mean, a 49.66 is still a tremendous time that I achieved, and maybe if I pushed a little more, I could have probably gotten just that little bit more out of the regular F1. But this LM is just nuts. It is tremendously quick. And accuracy-wise, I think the spoiler might be a little too high up. I think it. I can't recall if it's supposed to be that high. I don't think it is supposed to be, though. I do like, though, that it has the GTR thing on the side. That is accurate. For the most part, everything looks generally alright. Just exception that, again, the lights look a little too big, but again, probably based off the same, based on the same thing. Look at that, 47.94. That's ridiculous. That is very, very fast. Now it's fast through there too. Although it kind of got a little bit loose there, apparently, from the looks of things. But yeah, if you really want a fast car to really blaze through the game with, if you use like one of those trainers that just gives you all the cars at the car lot at the start, this F1 LM might be a tremendous choice. Now, I will mention, this was, I believe, requested by Victor S. This particular mod was not the F1 LM he requested me to. Over on Driving Passion, there's a McLaren F1 LM XP1 that's come straight from Most Wanted 2012. It was an official DLC car for that game. And that was the one I was originally planning to do for this video as well. And that actually would have been the only McLaren that didn't replace the SLR McLaren. That one actually interestingly replaces the Pontiac GTO. But unfortunately, as fate would have it, I can't download the thing because every time I try to download it, it just gives me a Dropbox 404 error saying that the file doesn't exist. So the link is dead. So unfortunately, I'm not able to drive it, which really sucks because I would have loved to be able to drive it. So this is basically a sort of compromise. So Victor S, if you're watching this, which I imagine you probably are, I apologize for the inconvenience, but hopefully you do accept this nonetheless, because it is still technically the same car. And yeah, look at that, 47.78. This is one quick mod. We've had two McLarens, and both of them are faster than sub 50 seconds. Can we complete it with the last one? And finally, we have here probably the craziest of them, although in certain ways, as you probably can look here, this is the McLaren F1 GT longtail, as the mod specifically calls it. Technically, it's really the F1 GT, and technically, it's really the F1 GTR, if you consider that wing there. But anyways, you may be thinking, this definitely does not look anywhere near as good as the other ones. And to be fair, that is actually have a lot to do with the fact that this mod is nearly 10 years old. I was specifically requested to do this one, so that's why I'm doing it. But yeah, this is a nearly 10-year-old mod requested by Q96. It's only about a couple months away from actually turning 10. It's scary to think where all this time has gone. But it also kind of shows a great way of just how far car mods have come in terms of how they look. I mean, back in the day, you wouldn't really mind that much because, you know, modding was a different thing back then. And this game, not a lot of people knew the limits of what some of the poly counts, a lot kind of stuff. So, you know, I can't really critique it too much because again, it's just such an old mod. But yep, as you would expect by listening to the sound, because none of the other two replace it, this essentially completes the trilogy of all the SLR McLaren replacements. And oh dear, oh boy, after having two amazingly solid performing F1s, this one kind of brings it back down to earth. It honestly just drives more like an SLR did. Now this time it's now in the body of an F1 GT longtail from 2007. Are there newer F1 GT mods? I don't actually recall. There might be. Actually, no. What am I saying? There is an F1 GT, a newer F1 GT. It's more faithful though to the original car. It does not have that GTR like wing on the back, because the real life GT did not have that wing. But yeah, we're definitely gonna be seeing a car here that definitely will not be anywhere near the pace of the other two F1s that I've driven, which is a bit disappointing because you'd expect it to continuously get better and better, because the GTR Longtail is a little bit of an interesting case. Now, by the time the GTR Longtail was made, which was 1997, the idea for what to make out of a GT-like car had really changed. Because back then it was really about giving the cars a really high sense of speed, and also give them some good cornering skills. However, by the later end of the 90s into the turn of the 2000s, that mindset changed, in where the people who made these cars aimed more for how a car handled. They wanted aerodynamics to be the most important thing of the car, so they wanted to make the car grip the corners as fast as possible, to make them go as fast around corners, faster than all their other competitors. And so the F1 GTR Longtail has the slowest top end of any of the F1s, at only roughly around just under 200, but handling wise it is leagues above the others. It is such a tremendously better handling car that the top end really didn't matter too much. Now, the F1 GTR after 95 and 96 was already quite a successful racing vehicle, but in 97, whilst it still did fairly well, there was one big competitor in its way: Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes was trying to get into the FIA GT thing or whatever, and actually bought a McLaren F1 GTR for testing purposes. They wanted to test the car out, get an idea of what it can do, and try to build upon it to make their own car. The result was the CLK GTR. And whilst and competed alongside the F1 GTR, and whilst the F1 at the start proved to be better for a while, the CLKs easily began to pick up the pace and pretty much took most of the championship from there, and won out championship, beating the F1 GTR. But to be fair, the F1 GTR did still do very respectable, get in second place from actually the official factory team, the BMW Motorsport. So, hey, it wasn't all doom and gloom for the F1 GTR. In fact, if I remember correctly, I do believe the Longtail F1 GTR did win in its class at Le Mans. The F1 GTR is still very successful. The Longtail is still a very successful race car when you look back at it. But yeah, you can see it's nearly 10 seconds back on the F1 LM that I tested, doing only a 57.28. So, but interesting how things have turned around this time. And so we head over to the leaderboard now, and of course the fastest car of the day. In 13th place is the McLaren F1 LM, doing a time of 47.78 seconds. It does become the fastest SLR McLaren replacement mod that we've tested, which was previously held by another F1, the Elite F1, which is a few positions down. It beats out that, also beats out the crazy pumpkin car, the Audi R8 TDI, and a Lotus T125, and as well as a Peugeot 908. It's a little bit back on a fucking Proton Wyra, the Enzo MIG U1 by Gambala, Sonic Speedstar, Satcher GTI Lawnmower. The top 10 is still really weird, I'll tell you that. Anyways. Not too far down, however, into 22nd place, we have the standard McLaren F1, doing a time of 49.66, edging out the Proton Waja. A lot of 2107 tuning, tuned Beetle, Zonda R, R390 GT1, 46 Taxi. Just a little bit back on the Skyline GTR 34, Red Bull X1, Skyline GTS 25T, R33, and 908, and F1 Elite. However, we do have to go quite a bit down to get to our last of the day I might have gone a little bit too far. At 112th place, the McLaren F1 GT Longtail, doing a time of 57.28. In comparison, I was 1/10 quicker with the standard SLR McLaren, so I'd say that's not far off enough to say that they're any different. It's really just more of a body change rather than a performance. But it does beat out an Evo 8, Zonda F, Clio V6, Ascari KZ1, Murcielago Husaria, Ram SRT10, Holden Effigy, all that kind of stuff. Again, just behind the SR McLaren, Viper SRT10, E36 M3, Stratos HF, and Renault 5 Turbo 2. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. If you got a request for a car, leave it down below in the comments. Make sure that the link actually works. Again, I'm sure Victor S didn't actually realize. I didn't realize myself. I probably should have alerted him, so that's on me, morally, if anything. But yeah, if you want to request it, leave it down below in the comments. As well, check out my links in the description if you want to see my Twitter, Twitch, my forum boards, or if you want to donate to my Patreon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, take care.